Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Asian Business Awards 2015. It is now time for our business panel. We have some truly inspiring entrepreneurs for you this evening. On the panel, we have Amit Patel of Auden Mackenzie Pharma. Yeah, wow. Auden Mackenzie in the house. Yeah. If you want drugs, anyone, the party table is over there. They've got all the drugs you'll need. Some of them legal. Brett Warburton of Warburtons is here, and Mr. GP Hinduja of the Hinduja Group. Wow, an amazing panel. First, let us welcome Amit Patel. He's the Managing Director of Auden Mackenzie Group, one of the country's fastest growing pharma companies. Amit founded the company 15 years ago with initial seed capital of £100,000. Since then, the group has been one of the undoubted stars of the pharma industry, growing at an exponential rate through innovation and product development. Now, the group currently holds over 175 product licenses and delivered an operating profit, ladies and gentlemen, in 2013 of £45 million. Earlier this year, at the age of just 39, Amit sold his company for £306 million in cash, in lots of Louis Vuitton trunks that were delivered to his house. Add to that royalty payments over the next few years and cash reserves in the business, the total deal will be over £400 million. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Amit Patel. Is it true that the reason you got into this business is because a lot of suppliers were making your dad very angry?
That is completely true, yes.
So let's talk about that story.
So this is now, we're going back into the early 90s and the mid 90s, where my father had a pharmacy in central London. And there was a group of patients, probably 1,000 opiate dependent patients, who were being serviced by probably a group of 15 shops. And at that point, there was only one supplier of the product. And to cut a very long story short, because it was on private prescriptions, it was very price sensitive. And there was a pharmacy down the road that was buying almost half the amount that my father was buying. So we were buying double, he was buying half. And I've read a lot of economic theories, but I've never seen one that says you buy double and you pay double. And for some reason, that's what we were doing. So my father got annoyed, and I remember one night, my dad came home and he just said in jest, let's put up a small unit. And putting up a sterile unit in the UK is a very complicated business because, quite rightly, medication's highly regulated. So, that's what we did. And this was around about 1996, 97.
So you identified that there was one company that had a monopoly, and of course that was wrong. And how did you compete with them? How did you do it? Was it purely on price?
Well, I was now in my very early 20s, so even getting through that, was a big hurdle because the Department of Health initially didn't really know what to do with my request. Because in the UK, in steriles, you only had some of the very large firms and some of the very small hospital firms. So, we went in and we set up a unit, and it took us a number of years to get our approvals. And after that, I think we competed, A, on price, and secondly, thankfully, the majority of those pharmacies were actually Asian-owned. So we had some support, and some of them, unfortunately, didn't support us for that same reason.
Were they owned largely by Patels as well?
Actually,
were you related to most of them?
I wasn't related, but I think a fair number of them were actually Patels. Yes, you're right.
At what point did you realize that the business was about to really take off? That you'd really struck gold?
Well, I'll tell you what happened is that particular product, that I was talking about, it was actually made under a specials provision. So basically anybody could actually make that. But we went ahead and we actually licensed that product. So the competitor had to stop making it. So I sent the guy a fax one day, with a big smile on my face saying, you have to stop. And at this point I was 21 and I was making a lot of money because I was the only supplier. But being so young, I forgot to think about the future and I was enjoying the money. Whereas 15 months later...
How much were you enjoying the money?
At that point, I was making £1 million a year, and I was 21, so that was just fantastic. And 15 months later, the competition sent me a fax saying, we've got the license. To which then I said, now I'm in a little bit of trouble here. So I think at that point, we decided that, we need to change our strategy completely. And we started to go for very niche products. And this is in the early 2000s. Now we're talking 2002, 2003. And from that time onwards, I think from then to now, we've actually ended up with 175 licenses. But I think what is unique about our business is from 175, we've only acquired 50, and we've self-developed 125 of those, which is a real testament to the whole Alden McKenzie team.
That's amazing.
Because
and they're all there, aren't they? There's a lot of Alden McKenzie.
Because if you really think about that, that basically equates to one license every month for 12 years. And the people in the pharmaceutical industry will probably appreciate that to generate a license every month for 12 years is a very difficult task.
Considering you started this business when you were so young, and less than 20 years later, you sold it, how difficult was that to do, considering this is something you had nurtured from the very beginning? It was your heart, your soul, it was everything to you, and your sister, of course.
Sure.
How difficult was that decision?
I think for me, we need to understand what business meant to me first. I think business has a lot of secondary advantages. It developed me as a person, it gave me lots of exposure, I got opportunities that I would never have normally. But I think primarily for me, I was very focused on the fact that to me, business was the art of creating value, and you must realize that value at the right time. And for me, I was absolutely focused on that. And this was the right time for us. And there were a couple of other secondary reasons. I always said that I wanted to sell before I was 40, and I sold when I was 39 and 11 months. So I just made it. And I think I've got a little baby girl, and I think after she arrived, it's really changed my perspective on a lot of things. Because I've spoken to a lot of people here, and they tell me that, when they were growing their businesses, they couldn't spend enough time with their children and family. And I think across the country, for a lot of people, when they have children, that's the point where they need to work the hardest. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to have semi-retired, when my child is so young, so I really look forward to spending a lot of time with her.
Because our parents' generation didn't have that luxury, did they?
Absolutely, correct. I mean, I grew up and, I watched my father, who was an incredibly entrepreneurial man, very hardworking, very, very dynamic. And, and in that same spirit, I watched my mum again, who's a person who I've never heard the words "I'm tired," extremely hardworking, dynamic. And I think, again, I've got the best qualities of both of them. From my father, I learned the art of making money. And equally important for my mother, I learned the art of spending money. Because it's very important to keep the economy going that way. Yeah?
Round of applause. And talking of money, £300 million, £306 million cash. When that happened, did you lay as much of it out on a bed as possible and dive into it?
Well, because we sold to a company listed on the New York Stock Exchange, the deal was very public. And, we signed it at 11:50 p.m. on the 23rd of Jan, and on the 26th morning it was announced. And because it was so public, a lot of the private banks and the wealth management institutions called me up to say, we can help you to do this and this. And I said to them all, I said, thank you for your offer, but I don't think I'm going to need your help because Mrs. Patel is going to have spent the money very shortly.
Yeah, that's a lot of Hermes bags, though. I think that's 300 million is a lot.
She buys a lot of bags, trust me.
Now, talking of Mrs. Patel, you have a young daughter. How many nappies did you change? Were you a hands-on dad?
I think we could take the risk of asking her that question, but I think I
really?
don't think.
Do you really want to do that?
No. I think she would say I'm a conveniently, selectively hands-on father.
Ladies, do we like that description? Conveniently selective hands-on dad? Any mothers in the audience like that answer? I think the silence says it all there.
But saying that, I'm going to have a lot more time in the coming months to be a much more hands-on father.
Good man. And when your daughter grows up, will you be the, "Oh, yes, sir, come into our home," or will you have a baseball bat by the front door?
It's quite funny because I just spoke to my wife about this just the other day, and I said to her, if you watch a lot of movies and you see girls' fathers saying, I'm going to break your legs, with a baseball bat or a cricket bat, but I really understand that now, and I'm pretty sure I'll be the same.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Amit Patel, fantastic. Brett Warburton, oh yeah, we got a white guy on the stage, is the 5th generation of his family to lead the famous Bolton-based bread company. Brett joined the family business, that's why we got him on, because it's a family business, in 1979 and has worked in a variety of roles, from production manager in the bakery to marketing manager and group managing director. Brett has a Harvard MBA and with his cousins, Jonathan and Ross, has led the company to unprecedented levels of growth, ladies and gentlemen. The cousins have transformed Warburton's from a little-known regional bread brand to the country's second biggest grocery brand. Second only to Coca-Cola and worth a staggering £750 million in retail sales. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brett Warburton. Great to see you here, my friend. Now, I could try and do this interview by getting as many bread puns into the questions as possible.
They'll be all stale jokes.
Yeah, it would all be stale. I thought through austerity you'd be toast. Is there still a lot of dough in this business? All of that kind of stuff. Is it still an honest crust? But I thought we'll leave all of those.
I'm sure everyone appreciates that.
Thank you. Thank you. But one thing I do want to ask you is, you have a company that dates back to 1876. So the 5th generation now working in the business. How do you think you've managed to keep that family ethos for all that time?
A degree of compromise.
Compromise?
Between the family members who are working in the business. And we've worked very hard to keep the shareholding tight. So the base of the pyramid has not gone too wide. So those people working in the business effectively own the business. And that way we all show a common goal to the values of the business, the values of the family are all the same. We all hold the same values and the same ethos and the same determination.
But when you were young, the business was a successful business, a wealthy business. Was it something that you always wanted to do, to work in that business? Because, of course, there's a lot of Asian family businesses here, and the expectation to work in the family business can be something that can lead to people who sometimes perhaps aren't best qualified to be in that business. What was it like for you?
Firstly, we weren't allowed to come and work for the business straight away. We had to go away and get educated and then get experience working in the outside world. The three of us are all very close. We're all cousins, we're not brothers. We're all similar age group, but we all wanted to come into what was then just a Lancastrian business, because we felt there was an opportunity to do something different, and we'd been brought up to be effectively custodians of the business, with the responsibility to take it to the next level for the next generation.
And you did that because, of course, you three cousins took over the business in '91, and you clearly had a vision to take it somewhere much bigger. Where did that sense of ambition come from?
I think we learned when we came back in the business in the mid-'80s. I came back from Harvard in '85, and we knew then that it was a mini conglomerate at that time, based in Lancashire, and the bread business was just one part of it. But we truly believed that was the seed from which we could grow something different. And we set out from Lancashire in the mid-'80s to become Britain's favourite baker. But we never set out really to become a bigger business. We set out to become a better business. And we knew that if we truly delivered a better business, the bigger would almost take care of itself.
But was it quite a high-risk strategy? Because one thing you don't do is it's not a race to the bottom in terms of price for you.
Not at all. We've never entered the market on price. We've been committed to producing a better product and charging a premium for it and getting the consumer to buy it, because we believe if they buy it once, they'll become loyal very quickly. And it's on that philosophy that we've moved from being a very regional business to, as you say, the grocer confirmed this week again, that we are the second largest grocery brand in the UK behind Coca-Cola, which to my reckoning makes us the UK's biggest grocery brand.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And a round of applause for that, the UK's biggest, UK-based. Brett, how do you deal with, and lots of suppliers have accused supermarkets of bullying tactics. How do you deal with that when they're the ones who perhaps are saying, well, look, you know how much it's worth to supply to us? How do you deal with that kind of pressure?
I think, first of all, being a branded owner supplier, and we don't do private label, the power of the brand is enormously helpful in that negotiation. But the most important thing is to treat everybody fairly. And so we're known as the honest broker. When people say what's happening, they understand that Warburton's is playing the game very straight, whoever the customer is. And we've always believed that we have a strong ethos and a determination and a passion to produce the best product we can and deliver that product fresh every day to 20,000 stores across the UK. So it's a massive logistical operation as well. And we do it well and we do it fairly. And hopefully that service that we give to our customers and to our consumers puts us in a strong position to deal with the multiples.
Do you have to be ruthless to succeed in business?
I think you have to be fair. You need that streak, but you need to be fair.
How do you balance that? Because, of course, there are other people out there who are ruthless. Amit?
I think for myself, I would say I've never been proactively ruthless, but I've definitely been reactively ruthless.
When provoked?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's not something that I go out to do. I think, in a businessman's, in your career, I think, you've got to be compassionate, you've got to be empathetical, you've got to be, at some point, distant, at some point, you've got to do difficult things, and at some point, you may have to do something which could be deemed to be ruthless, but definitely not proactively, reactively.
And you would agree with that?
I'd agree with that.
100%. Running a family business, when there are people in the family who feel that they should be in the business, but perhaps they're not best qualified to be in the business, and you are going from that point where you are evolving into something much bigger, which needs external help to run it, how difficult is it to manage that evolution of a business? Have you not had to do that? We've had shareholders who've not been part of the business, but they are no longer shareholders. We've managed to concentrate the shareholding around the boardroom table. And having that consolidated view around the boardroom table and that strong ethos about what we're doing and the way we're going to do it has helped us achieve what we want to achieve without a distraction of family members outside who maybe had different desires from their shareholding. And when the three cousins don't agree, what's the process you go through in order to make sure that you come up with the best thing for the company? You're not going to believe this, but I can't remember when we didn't agree. Same with you and your sister?
I think so, yeah, because, we actually complemented each other very well, because I was always an ideas and a concepts man. My sister's a very people's person and a very good person for the nitty-gritty detail. So both of us together complemented very well. As the business grew, it became necessary, for us to get a middle management tier. And I think, we accepted that as soon as you have new people on board, they'll do things differently. They may do things differently to the way we would do them. But I think in most cases, we've ended up in the same destination. Maybe they've taken a different route.
Yeah.
But, we've got to the same place.
Brett?
If you have a strong goal and a strong vision, and importantly, a strong set of values to run the business by, the decisions really take care of themselves.
How do you build a brand as successfully as you have done with Warburton's? Because, as I said in the introduction, you could have stayed where you were and made a great business out of it. It was a great business. But you decided to expand. Also, as well, I thought, something I read which was very interesting, was that Hovis was supplying flour to you guys. Didn't even see the fact that the amount of flour they were supplying was getting more and more and more, and they didn't see that you were creeping up behind them. You're like the ninjas of the baking world.
I think we grew the business by having that determination to produce the best product we possibly could. And making sure that we delivered the freshest product we could to our customers. And not growing the business too fast that we had to compromise those standards.
I've got an interesting question, something that your cousin Jonathan said, which was, an inherited life is a dangerous thing. How do you deal with the next generation not spoiling them and making them realize the value of money?
That's a great question, and one that troubles us greatly. All we can do at the moment, and the next generation is sort of really about university age, is to do our best to make sure that they understand the values that we run the business by, the importance of the family values that we run the business by whatever definition that you choose to take. And I'm very proud of the fact that in our Bolton bakery, which is our oldest bakery, over 20% of the people who work there have been with us for more than 25 years.
Wow, that's great. That's it.
And I think what we've got to do to the next generation is to make them responsible shareholders so they understand the business and they understand the values of the people that work in the business and don't take that for granted. It's a very tough question.
Yeah, very tough. Here's your 18th birthday present, a brand new Bentley. Now value money.
Trust me, that won't happen.
Amit.
For myself, I think, if I look back at my life, my father gave us a wonderful life, all of the opportunities, everything he possibly could. If I look at my daughter, who's 2, she'll probably grow up materialistically wanting for nothing. So I think it's, that's the challenge as parents, to instill in them a sense of purpose, and a sense...
it's not about the money.
Absolutely,
Right.
And there's a lot more to it than just that. So I think, that's a great challenge for us as parents. But I'm also a big advocate in saying that if you own assets meaning whatever you want to call them, things, facilities, I fully advocate the use of them. Because there's nothing wrong with your children using what you have as long as they don't abuse it. And that's a very fine line between use and abuse.
Yeah. He's like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of industry, ladies and gentlemen. He's an amazing man. I've interviewed him before on this stage. His name is Gopichand Hinduja, co-chairman of the Hinduja Group. Wait till he comes up, Dr. Rami Ranger. I mean, good grief. One of the world's biggest and most diversified family-owned private businesses. The group has interests in 10 business sectors, which include banking, oil, automotive manufacturing, energy, IT, and outsourcing, owning some iconic brands such as Gulf Oil and Ashok Leyland. The group employs over 70,000 people across 35 countries. That is very much worth a round of applause, isn't it? Please welcome Mr. G.P. Hinduja to the stage. But it all started with Bollywood films in Iran, didn't it?
It started by my late father exactly 100 years back.
Wow.
And it was with textile, tea, jute goods, spices, cotton, Persian carpets.
Persian carpets? Wow.
Yes. Movie business started only in 1958 as a sideline. And that was also my late elder brother who had a desire to promote the Indian culture. He could foresee that there is a lot of potentiality in Hindi movies, but they were not well exploited. We had 1,500 titles, and you'll be surprised, not in a single title we lost money.
Not one?
No, and that work was done after our office hours. We never spent our time on the movie business in business hours. When I say it was a side business, we used to only start after 6:30 p.m. We had a separate office for a movie business. And then, even when I got wedded, I can tell you, I never went one evening out with my wife for a restaurant or a movie, I used to go to the studio, sit myself on the editing, movula, background music, dubbing. We had to put lot of work to make it a success. And the real story of Bollywood, if somebody was to write, it started from Hinduja Brothers.
Hey!
And if you look at all the successful movies, starting from Shri 420, Aag, Sangam, Suraj, name any movie, full of successes. Even which were flops in India, we knew how to edit them and how to change their dialogues and make it appealing for the Middle Eastern countries. In UK, you never had a Hindi movie other than a matinee show on Saturday and Sunday. We were the pioneers in starting the Bollywood movies for 7 days a week.
Fantastic. Amazing. And each one of those films is about 4 hours long, so good grief. Now, you said that your wife didn't see you at all in the evenings. No restaurants.
No, she used to be with me in the studio.
She was there with you in
Yes.
the studio. No restaurants.
No.
No, you never spoilt
No.
her. How
No.
did you spoil her, Mr. Hinduja?
How did I?
How did you spoil her? How did you treat her like a lady and give her a great life?
let me
Can't be in a
tell you.
studio all the time, Mr. Hinduja.
She knew that my focus and determination was to be successful. And with that determination, we used to work from morning to evening. And I would also give her a credit. She supported me by not grumbling.
You're a lucky man. That's all I can say. You're a lucky, lucky man. Now, you are worth a fabulous amount of money, billions of pounds. But what does money mean to you? What does wealth mean to you?
You see, our late father taught us that the wealth doesn't belong to us. We are the trustees, and we have to use money for good causes. And I would think this is the only joint family in the world where there is no shareholding at all. Everything belongs to everyone and nothing belongs to anyone. If somebody wants to live, he is welcome to live. He will get everything, all the comforts. And if you ask a shareholding, I don't have anything.
Wow.
So the question of wealth doesn't come.
And about family and spirituality,
Yes.
how important in business is faith?
This is a very good question, and it is something which I always discuss with my friends, with my family. Faith and trust is the most important ingredient of success in family, success in business. If you have a negative thinking and you don't have trust, you won't be able to do anything. You can never be successful. I have only believed in one thing, that give me any challenges, I have no word in my dictionary impossible. Next to impossible is only possible. But we should have determination, we should have focus, and we should try to see to do things what we love. We should have passion for that. And if we don't have passion, we don't have love for it, we should not do it. We should not be concerned about failures. The more you have failures, the better successes come. If you know of Mr. Watson, who started IBM, he always used to say, double up your failures and stronger successes you bring. Even the gentleman who developed the bulb, light bulb, you know how many failures he had? more than 10,000 times. And finally, he was successful. So, never get concerned on failures. Have determination, keep on working without attachment. But if you kept on having attachment that I will do this and I will make this much money, I will buy a building, I will buy a car, I will do this, I will do that, making castles in air means nothing. I'm only giving you my experience. I have never worked for money.
That's a considerable experience as well. In all the years you've been in business, do you have any regrets, Mr. Hinduja?
I have.
Any regrets? Is there anything that you regret? Anything
No,
that you wish you could have done?
I have no regrets because whatever I did it with liking, with love, and with passion. Even now, when I go for a walk, I have my friends with me, and we keep on talking all sort of things happening in the world, but what we like.
You've seen a lot of Indian prime ministers come and go. As we come up to the first year of Narendra Modi ji being Prime Minister of India, how do you think his first year has been?
It's a good question. I know there are many investors here. Wherever I go, this question has been put to me. You're not the first one.
Damn!
Yes. But I want to be honest.
Please do so.
One thing good in Narendra Modi is that his objectives, goals, and vision are very good and clear. But he has a culture of last 60, 70 years with him. So we should not expect miracles. It will take time for him to change the culture, to take the team along with him. There are not as many bureaucrats and ministers with him who could run with the same speed and the same vision like Modi. So, keeping in mind this thing, I would answer your question by saying that India is fortunate to have Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister, and I personally feel he will change the face of India. There was a time, I remember, India used to go to the world for showcasing that it is a good destination for investment. Today, the world is turning towards India.
Yes, very true.
But I would also like to warn Mr. Modi through this message. Dr. Manmohan Singh had twice similar opportunities, but he was not able to grab because he could not implement. Now, he has to gear up. He has created an excellent hype. Everyone is looking towards India. He has to start moving things faster before the interest disappears.
Right. Very, very wise words. And lastly, for all three of you, Amit, what would you say your biggest weakness is? Could be a weakness for cars, watches, could be...
I think I have all of those, but in business terms, do you mean?
Business, or in other words, not too personal, obviously.
I think in business, is a lot of entrepreneurs are, we are quite emotional people because we're so attached to our businesses and the growth of those businesses. I think sometimes, especially in my younger days, you can get caught up in emotion and make decisions which later on upon reflection, you might regret. So I would say, especially in my younger days, that was a weakness, which is considerably improved as I've got older and older, I must say.
So does that mean you shouldn't make business decisions with your heart? It should always be with your head?
No. I believe I am where we are and the organization is where it is because a lot of people do make decisions with their heart because, sometimes I believe, in most cases, that's probably the best way to do them.
Right.
But not always.
Brett, weakness. Good strong Bolton lad like you's got no weaknesses.
Sometimes, in the spirit of compromise, we may not make decisions quick enough. And sometimes compromise can be a little bit of deliberation. So you've got to make that call and get on with it sometimes. But that's probably outside of work. That probably it's translating that compromise. It gives sometimes in the personal situation a little of difficulty because you're not used to upsetting people. You're too happy to try and please all the time.
Well, that's an impossible task, isn't it? And lastly, Mr. GP Hinduja, any weaknesses at all from a man who's added over £2 billion to the value of his businesses in the last year? Do you have any weaknesses, do you think?
Let me tell you, my only weakness is to accept challenges. And I really don't have anything to have grievance, to have any weakness. Except my family keeps on saying that even on holidays or wherever I am, somehow I find something to be connected with the business. And I take the challenge.
You can never switch off?
No, I can't switch off. Because if I switch off even for a couple of hours, I think I'm dead.
You are very much alive, there's no worry about that. Ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing panel of esteemed businessmen. Amit Patel, Brett Warburton, Mr. GP Hinduja.
Io passo a dolcetto, seguendo la rotta di un passeruto. Io passo a dolcetto.